17. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who's, okay, would you take roll, please, sir?
Absolutely. So Mayor Kaiser.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Medlicott.
Here.
Trustee Koopman.
Here.
And Trustee Bornstein.
All right. We have a consent agenda. Is there any questions, comments regarding the consent agenda? Yes, sir. Trustee Koopman,
No,
did you? Oh, I'm
no
sorry.
question.
I thought you were raising.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Bishop, would you take roll, please?
Sure. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Trustee Koopman.
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0. Mr. Vick, would you like to come forward, Executive Director, Cultural Office of Pikes Peak Region, and lead us into this proclamation?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the Trustee Council, my name is Andy Vick. I am the Executive Director of the Cultural Office of Pikes Peak Region, and I am here to do a brief presentation for you and then ask for your proclamation, and then, if I may indulge, a quick photo op, and you'll see why in just a moment. So the Cultural Office is a non-profit organization that serves El Paso and Teller counties, and our job is to support, encourage, and advocate for arts and culture in our community. We do this in a variety of different ways. We operate the community's cultural calendar, which is peakradar.com. We do economic impact studies for the cultural sector here in our region. And one of the things we do is we put on an event called Arts Month. So there is a National Arts and Humanities Month, which was started back in the 80s at the national level. Different communities embrace it at different levels. Our community started its own local Arts Month initiative back 4 years ago. This happens every October, and the whole idea behind Arts Month is to elevate awareness and increase engagement for arts and culture in our community. We do this, and we specifically encourage people to have one new cultural experience during the month of October with their family or friends. And we do that because studies have shown that if you're not already involved in arts and culture, having an invitation from a family member or a friend is a great way to engage the arts and cultural community here in the Pikes Peak region. This is our month of October, which we obviously just began yesterday. We promote the whole month as Arts Month, but we also spread out in 4 different weeks different themes around the arts, and allows us to help more effectively market the whole Arts Month campaign. We operate, as I mentioned, peakradar.com, which is our community's cultural calendar. We set up a special landing page, peakradar.com/Arts Month, where you can get all the information about Arts Month. Most importantly, you will find, as you scroll down there, a list of activities that are happening throughout the region and here in the Tri-Lakes area. Right now there are over 150 different events, cultural events, happening during the month of October, so there's plenty of exciting things to choose from. And again, we're encouraging people to have one new cultural experience during the month. From our end, we are doing all kinds of promotion, billboards, print. We have some ads running in the Tri-Lakes Tribune, video, TV. Hopefully you're seeing some ads for Arts Month, and ultimately the hope is to drive people to that landing page to engage. This is what I'm here right now doing. Part of the Arts Month experience is I get to travel around to as many municipalities as possible in our 2-county region. This is my 6th visit this year to a local municipality, and it's an opportunity for me to engage our elected leaders and tell you how important arts and culture is in our community, not only for its aesthetic and intrinsic value, but because the nonprofit arts and cultural sector in the 2-county region has a $153.3 million economic impact. So it's not just about the joy of art, it is about having a definitive and substantive economic impact in our community, and that is an excellent reason to be supporting it and encouraging it. We just had a great party. I won't mention it's past. It happened this past Friday, where we kick off Arts Month. We have next week, this this week, in fact, Friday, our annual Business and Arts Lunch, where we recognize businesses and business leaders that support the arts. As we have in past years, Jody Bliss, a member of your local arts community, is the individual artist who's providing all the awards for this event, and she does an outstanding job for us every year. And then we have some special programming coming up. I will defer on that in the interest of time, but lots of great things happening during Arts Month, and this is where you can find all about it. peakradar.com/Arts Month. We have some pop-up events at peakradar.com/ArtsPop, and we're running all kind of contests, all to engage people in arts and culture in our community and get them to take advantage of what's going on here in the creative sector in the Pikes Peak region. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you, and looking forward to the proclamation, as well as a photo op with whomever on the council who would like to be in the picture.
Great, thank you so much. Questions from the board?
I'd just like to thank you. I know you've been active in our community here locally with Trilex Views, Art Hop, like you mentioned, Jody Bliss's gallery. So thank you for keeping it in the local area also.
Sure, we work closely with Madeline Vandenhoek from the city. Terry Hayes is a great partner. She was actually down at the Artini this past Friday. So we have very close and strong and positive relationships with some of your key folks here in the Tri-Lakes area. We greatly appreciate that, and you have some very talented artists in this community, and we're very pleased to be able to support them as well.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All right. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument, do hereby proclaim October as Arts Month in Colorado's Pikes Peak region, and call upon our citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in the Town of Monument, and to specifically encourage the greater participation by those said citizens in taking action for the arts and humanities in their community, as of the 2nd day of October 2017.
How's your camera work? Zoom in now, and then just push halfway to focus, and then all the way. Dave, if you take a couple, that'd be great.
Yeah, why don't you come on up here? We'll have
Be great.
the seal in the background here.
Perfect. Can we hold up the actual proclamation?
Sure, that would be great.
Maybe take off.
Yeah, we'll take that. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You bet.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. And let's do 1, 1. All right.
Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Do you need this, or?
I think the
Yeah.
If you can email me a copy, that'd be great.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bishop.
A few board meetings ago, there were a few questions concerning the methods of communication that we use to reach the public when we are putting out things like board packets and minutes, and making sure that they know when board meetings are happening right now. Aside from the normal guidelines that the planning department used with posting things like that, I wanted to highlight some of the new methods of communication that have been used with the Town of Monument recently, and sadly, because I'm a millennial, they've been pushed on me to formulate. Thank you, Chris. So we're just going to kind of highlight kind of the new uses of technology that we're using. We're going to go over the new website, minutes on demand, social media, the new live video streaming, as well as text alerts. Stop me if you have questions at any time as we go through these, and I'll do my best to answer them. So February of this year, we got our new website, which was huge. If any of you remember the old website, it was less than aesthetically pleasing. This was one of Chris's big initiatives. And just to start, I mean, I want to thank Amanda Sharlick, Shannon Walker, Carolyn Ernst, Laura Hogan, Drew Anderson. Some of these town employees have really been working their tails off to get this website where it needs to be, and under Chris's direction, it is really starting to look great. Up here and in your package, you see some of the metrics beneath you, and Chris and I were going over some of them last week, and it's kind of interesting. We even have people in France looking at our website right now to look at our mosquito control page. We have people at the University of Ottawa looking at our site for different things. So it's kind of neat to see how different municipalities and universities are looking at our webpage, getting information from a small town in Colorado. We have a website committee now. They meet bi-weekly, and working with Chris, they go over all of these changes now and try to keep the website up to date with the newest information. It is a work in progress, so if any of you see anything, I know some of you have already offered help to the website, we definitely welcome that for changes and updates, and we get on those immediately. So moving forward, now when we're talking about communication with the public, the picture on the left here, the upper left-hand corner, you see the large red dot, we have the banner bar. Every time there is a meeting, every time there is an intersection that is shut down, we automatically put it on the banner bar. So all people have to do is go to townofmonument.org, and they can see right there the news. If they scroll just down the page, you can see there our calendar. Every time there's a PC meeting, every time there's a Board of Trustees meeting, right there. And those are both just right on the front page. It's an easy visit for the public to get to see where we're at. Next up, and it's a subset of our webpage, we have minutes on demand. So every audio recording, the minutes when they're finalized, they all go to this site. Now, if they follow the instructions on this site, they can sign up for email alerts, where anytime a new packet is posted, anytime minutes are put up, anytime an audio recording is put on, they get an alert straight to their email that tells them exactly what's going on so they can go and be informed as a community. Social media. We all tweet here, right? A lot of you know Madeline, our community relations, and she runs this for us right now. And I have a few right here, some of our metrics for our Twitter, well over 1,000 followers, and we have a bunch of tweet impressions right there. And those are people that have seen it, it's been shared, or the word monument comes up in other pages. So this is what we have for this year. Facebook's the big one. We have a lot of followers, and we reach a lot of people with that, and there's a lot of engagement. Once again, that's when people are sharing, people are liking, people are getting the word out. And once again, our Board of Trustees meetings, all of this stuff is put out on our social media so that the public can hear this. This has been a labor of love for me. It's something I love to hate. I think a lot of you know we started with a video camera, then we moved to a tablet, and now we have Drew Anderson over here with our 2-camera system, and we're live streaming on YouTube with the actual speakers up here. It's been a developing system that we've kind of worked with and learned, and now people can go right and they can watch us live. This is put out on our Facebook page, it's put out on our Twitter, it's put out on our website, so people have complete access to now they can watch all of this and the camera angles change. To make it even better, recently, Chris directed me to find a way to do text alerts. So now we have text alerts. If you text Monument to 41411 on your phone, we now send everything from Board of Trustee meetings, the link to Board of Trustees packets, the live feed for it, when we have snow closures, which we know are going to happen this winter. Those are going to be put out. There was an intersection shut down last week. I texted that to people's phones. So anybody you know, get this out. They'll get the latest updates on their phones. They'll be informed from anything from Board of Trustees meetings to school closures. And that is all I have for you. Do you have any questions?
What kind of promotion have we done for the text alerts? I think that's fantastic.
The text alert has been put on the banner on the website, and we've actually been doing it every other week now to let people know. It's also, we put it out on Facebook, we put it out on Twitter as well. And that's pretty much our means of getting it out there right now. Right now, we have 242 people signed up for it. I think we can do a lot better than that. It's a very simple way, as I said, text Monument to 41411.
Excellent. Well, as one of the trustees who wanted to get an update on the communication, thank you for you and the team here at Town Hall to increase our presence and our communication with the people of the community. Way better than what it was when we first took our seats here as the newly elected board. I think there's still room for improvement. I think there always will be room for improvement. How do you engage the community? You know, we saw several weeks back, angry people who felt that they weren't notified in time, even though we did everything that we legally need to do with the notices and the notifications. I personally would like to see more improvement as far as drilling down some of the upcoming topics rather than just the blanket, this is the agenda for the upcoming meeting. Maybe break out some of the specifics, even more so on some of the more, I don't want to say controversial topics, but topics that people are more passionate about and tend to get more engaged about, when we have a petition signed by well over 100 residents on a particular issue coming to town hall. That might be something that says, hey, we need to figure out how to engage the community on that topic a little bit more. But all in all, I think we're making leaps and bounds, fantastic improvements, excited about the text messages. I think that's great, and I'll be sure to sign up for that as well and encourage everybody to get on board with that. So, thank you.
Robert,
Yes, sir.
again, thank you, just like Trustee Cooper said, for everything you're doing. Very impressive. Do we have points of contact at the HOAs? What I'm thinking about is obviously the Planning Commission deals with issues that affect people and where they live in the areas around where they live. We heard some of the concerns. I want to do more personally to see that the communities are not blindsided in any way. Even if we've done everything legally, we should be. The fact is, I'm concerned about how the homeowners associations are getting the word, being kept involved, and in particular the Planning Commission. What they're talking about, what they're discussing. We're having several things come up tonight where the Planning Commission is involved. And I'm sure we've got some folks here who are going to want to talk to us. Anyway, that's the only thing I would say, in addition to everything you're doing, which is wonderful. It seems like, despite what we have here, we may in fact have something else we can do to make sure we're connecting to people, letting them know about something that's being discussed, what our comprehensive plan says, what's allowable, etc. If they're going to talk, they have to talk before it comes to this body for a vote, is the way I feel. So the bottom line is thank you very much, Robert. Thanks for this presentation.
Robert, any feedback on the live streaming thus far? Any numbers or?
We've
How
seen
is
a
it going?
dip in the watching of the live streaming every time we've changed platforms. When we went from the camcorder, it went down to the tablet. It started going up, but people were complaining about the sound. They were complaining about the video quality. So finally, we got a professional system here that Drew and I have been, it's been interesting at times. As tech savvy as I think we can be at times, it's been a little frustrating, but it's up and running. So far, I've gotten good feedback, but once again, if anybody's at home watching this, if you know anybody's watching it, shoot me an email. My email's on the website. I'm more than happy to look at it, and we'll do whatever we can to improve the quality and get the message out to the local public.
So, you did say that the audio issues have been resolved.
Yes, we have a speaker there on the table, and there's actually one right in front of you right there.
Very good.
Picking up everything you do, don't sneeze too loud.
All right, thank you so much. Ms. Smith.
Good evening. You have in front of you the proposed budget for 2018 document. The budget's in balance with no deficit spending as required by state statute. The budget detail for each department and fund outlines the annual revenues and expenditures or expenses for the year. There are no reports in the statistical section. We don't put those in until the budget's finalized. And the final written budget message and the statistics are presented with the final budget documents. Today's report is just for your review and consideration. The next several board meetings, you may comment and propose changes to the document. Final budget document will be presented at the December 4th meeting if it's not finalized prior to that, which will be your final opportunity and the public's final opportunity to comment or change the budget for 2018. The final budget will need to be approved no later than December 18th and submitted to the state by December 31st, 2017, unless we call a special meeting. The fiscal impact is as it's indicated in the attached report. And this is just a review. We have budget workshops farther on in the meeting to get scheduled, at least 2 budget workshops, so we can go over it in detail and get everybody's changes incorporated. And the changes take a little bit of time, so that's why we need a few weeks before the end of the year to get it finalized. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Smith. Appreciate it. Look forward to these workshops, as always. Thank you. Appreciate all your hard work and effort.
Thank you.
Pam, do you want to share with us the names of those who work so diligently with you? Because I know you're not alone. No, we know that's not true.
Actually, it's everybody, all of the department heads. We've had several meetings, as you saw in the budget calendar, Chris and I and Alicia and Robert, and then specifically my department, Connie Payette and Amanda Sharlick, worked very hard to put the work together and stick it all in this book for you to read. So,
Please thank them on our behalf.
thank you, Ira.
Appreciate it. Ms. Jones.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. The first item for you tonight is a sketch plan amendment for the Monument Ridge Plan Development. This was project DA 2017, and before you tonight as ordinance 19. Okay, so the area we are talking about tonight is highlighted in red on this aerial. Just to give you a little perspective, the road across the street at the top is Baptist Road with Struthers Road on the left. You're familiar with this site, I'm sure. The King Supers is at the top of the screen. The Fairfield Inn to the west of this site with some other retail along Baptist. So a summary, again, this is an amendment to their sketch plan. The amendment would apply to just under 10 acres of the overall 27-acre plan development. This plan development was originally approved in 2005. This particular area was called out as multifamily with the dwelling units per acre of 10 to 12. Other parts of the PD had other uses. Subsequent projects have changed that designation to commercial. There were some other projects approved, so that area is now commercial. And the current request would go back to multifamily at a higher density. 20 to 24 dwelling units per acre is what's being requested. Certainly, I have to imagine the first thing that comes to most people's minds, staffs as well, would be traffic. How does this impact traffic on those roads? And the traffic studies that were provided, that were reviewed by engineers as well as the county, came back that this type of multifamily development would actually result in significantly less traffic than the currently approved commercial. So back to that sort of overall sketch plan. Again, the overall area highlighted in blue is about 27 acres. Some of it developed, a little bit of it left undeveloped, all commercial. And then the area highlighted in red is what we're discussing tonight, again, with the proposed multifamily use. So what is the sketch plan? Just as a reminder, the sketch plan is what designates the uses in a plan development, as opposed to straight zoning where uses are listed in plan development. Your sketch plan is what you refer to show your designated uses. So that's before you tonight, a use change on the sketch plan. However, if this were to be approved, this project would still come back before you with a final PD site plan. That's where we get into the details that often most people are interested in, right? How many buildings, how high are they going to be, what's parking going to be like, landscaping, those kind of things. So that would come back in the form of a PD site plan, but at that time, we wouldn't be talking about the use designation again. That's what's before you tonight. Just a reminder for everyone. There's a number of criteria listed in the approval criteria. The main one, I believe, to be discussed is the comprehensive plan and how that fits into this proposal. Getting into the comprehensive plan specifically, obviously the future land use map is the most identifiable portion of that project. So this area, which is shown in red there, designated by the gray arrow, is called out as community commercial. Obviously that doesn't straight say high density. However, there's not a high density land use category for residential. There is a residential attached category. It describes things like patio homes and duplexes. So there's definitely some room for interpretation. Staff's viewpoint is that there is a number of items in the comprehensive plan that does support this type of use in community commercial. For example, there's a quote there from the attributes and characteristics that are discussed in community commercial, attached residential development nearby to provide a transition to less dense neighborhoods. The area shown on this diagram to the south, all in white, that's actually not in the town, that's low density residential within El Paso County, an unincorporated area. So obviously this could serve as a transition from the commercial high density and then a low density. Excuse me. Again, there's a number of areas in the comp plan that sort of indirectly address this issue. From Chapter 3, there's several existing condition statistics that are relevant. 84% of the residential units in the town are low density. Of developed residential acreage, it's less than 4% that accounts for multifamily. Again, there's some charts there from the comprehensive plan. There's certainly a lot of language that can be interpreted to support the need for this type of development. From Chapter 5, this is where we actually get into the details. Policy, framework, intent, opportunities, again, policies. I've pulled out two that I think are particularly relevant. Opportunity, LUA. The future land use plan provides an opportunity to move from single-use developments to a mix of complementary land uses. Again, this would be a mix of high-density residential and commercial. Again, these can be developed into activity nodes, and then it talks about this balance of live, work, play environments. That's certainly a desirable attribute. And then policy LU3, there was discussion of allowing for a wider array of land uses types to meet changing community needs. Or it's something that's sort of always evolving, what is needed. So this did go before the Planning Commission. There was a hearing in September. Staff recommended approval at that hearing based on the criteria, and the Planning Commission also recommended approval of this item. The vote was 3-2 at that hearing. Again, staff recommends approval of the sketch plan amendment to this plan development based on the finding that the proposed development complies with the standards and criteria for approval. Somewhat of a quick summary, but staff is available to answer any questions.
Yes,
Question, I'll save my comments for the comment section, but question, just to clarify, so what we're talking about is just slightly under a 10-acre parcel that we're wanting to change from not only the commercial but to multifamily housing again, but also from the original request that it was approved back in '05 was for 10 to 12 dwelling units per acre. Now we're talking 20 to 24 per acre, so upwards of over 200 units in that less than 10-acre commercial zone. Is that correct?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. No further questions.
Just a question, you mentioned there were traffic studies done.
Yes.
When were those done? Do you know the dates on that, please?
Well, there was, the current applicant provided a traffic impact study. It also referenced the previous traffic impact study that was done in approximately when the project was changed for commercial, and there were some approvals at that time. So it referenced both and it made a comparison. And again, those came back to say that there would actually be significantly less traffic with the multifamily versus commercial. So that was sent to our outside engineers for review. It was also sent to the county. We can, I should mention Baptist Road and Struthers Road are both under the jurisdiction of El Paso County. They're not town roads. And so we did confirm with them, try to get comments from them. They did not have traffic concerns.
Okay, I guess I should be more specific. Do we know the dates when these traffic studies were done? Because in the past we've seen studies done that have been substantially far back and nothing has been done within I'll even say a 36-month or 24-month period. Do we have any idea of that?
We certainly did when we initially reviewed it. I don't have it in front of me. The applicant may be able to provide you the dates that those were actually performed.
I can wait for that. Thank you very much.
Additional questions?
Just to clarify further, this was already approved multifamily for the main part of the area. We're adding the commercial, but this doesn't, even though we're approving it for 20 to 24, that doesn't mean that's what they're building, right? That'll come later.
I'm trying to get back to a graphic that I think might help. So the blue area is the overall plan development. Most of that's actually all commercial at this time. The area designated in red was originally approved for multifamily at a density of 10 to 12 in 2005, then changed to commercial, and now they're proposing to change it to multifamily at a density of 20 to 24. So it would only change the area designated in red, a little under 10 acres, and the rest of it would remain commercial as it currently is. Again, there's portions of that are already developed and there are some remaining vacant sites.
Right, but approving this, we're not saying they're putting 24 units per acre.
We're simply setting the use and density per the sketch plan. So the next step would be to do a preliminary or a final PD site plan, and we would confirm that that met the sketch plan. So certainly there would be further review, but this would set the allowable use for that area.
Thank you.
And just to confirm what I thought I heard you say, we're doubling. What the current sketch plan requirements are, we're doubling.
It would be doubling the originally approved density. Currently it's commercial, the original 10 to 12, yes.
Okay, I just wanted to know that.
I just want to further clarify. This is not approved at this point for multifamily high density, whether the 10 to 12 or the new proposed 20 to 24. This has been changed to and is currently commercial use.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I thought that just that red square on page, I don't have a page number here.
Can I?
Yeah, go up a little further.
I think that's what it
Towards
used
the
to
front.
be.
A different
and then
graphic?
it's-
So on the staff report, actually, we have a little, this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one. Mhm.
Do not have the same graphic that I'm showing here. So it's only changing the 9.8 acres that are in the southeast corner of this planned development.
Okay, can you go back one more? No, okay.
That doesn't show, this aerial doesn't show the entire area, so you can sort of fill in, it's all that. To the north and west, right, it's also part of this planned development. It's commercial. And so the area outlined in red, the vacant area, here, right, just under 10 acres, vacant, currently would allow for commercial, and then they're proposing multifamily.
Trustee Medlicott, could you show her what I?
Sure. It's in here. Actually. Staff report, this one.
So no, it's not changing that particular area. That was explaining something that actually I think got clarified at the planning commission hearing. But so it's that entire area, that entire almost 10 acres.
For the board, a point of reference, what area do we currently have 24 units per acre density?
I don't believe there's anything in the town currently approved with that density. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that the Vistas, right, the current approved, I believe they're approximately 19.
Okay, so something similar to.
Roughly, I don't think they're as high as this, but I believe they're in the 15 to 19 range.
Okay. Thank you.
Additional questions? The planning commission voted 3-2. Can you summarize the nay votes on what their concerns were?
Unfortunately, I don't know that they were expressed in a way that I would
You could
feel comfortable
articulate.
trying to summarize that.
Okay, that's fair. All right, very good. I understand the applicants here. Do you have some comments you'd like to share in support of this petition? Please come forward, state your name.
John Romero with NES.
Last name was?
John Romero.
Romero.
Yes, sir. So, we are the project managers, landscape architects on the project preparing this proposal in front of you today. Just to kind of quickly answer one of the questions you had just asked about some of the questions that the board or the planning commission had. One specifically that came up a lot was, or that we felt came up a lot, was the traffic. Understanding the traffic and how the counts had changed from the use change from the commercial to the residential. And I'll get into that here a little bit more as we get further in the presentation. To kind of add to another question too that Trustee Bornstein asked, it asked about when the counts were prepared. It was based on a 2009 report, but additional counts had happened back in August. So there were some extra questions that came up about some of the intersections, so those were further supplemented in the report and submitted to staff. And I'll go through this here. I'll try not to be too repetitive and go through some of the key points. Skip past this. This again, just to kind of touch a little bit on the past approvals, one thing that was kind of interesting is that, and we thought prudent to take care of at the time, is that there was a 2005 sketch plan, as Jennifer had mentioned, that noted it as multifamily being 10 to 12 DUs per acre, and then subsequent approvals through PD site plan approvals change the uses to commercial. Typically, I think you would do a sketch plan amendment, but there's ability through the code to amend the use through PD site plan. So as mentioned, our current proposal is for in an existing PD zone. Pardon me here. Keep up with my notes. There is a residential use change being proposed in the area, as Jennifer had mentioned. Directly to the east of us is a public service church area, and to the south is the county properties. Moving forward, we feel that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan, just based on the CC future land use zoning designation and the comp plan's vision of location of mixed use along the east I-25 corridor. Specifically those areas that are zone PD or planned commercial as such. The comp plan specifically notes these developments shall be served by controlled access, encouraging connectivity to adjacent uses such as that is Struthers and Baptist Road, providing that access. The proposal provides transition and buffering between the single family to the south and the commercial areas to the adjacent development. There is an existing, go back, see if I can show it. So previously in past approvals, there was a 50-foot transition landscape buffer on the directly adjacent to the residential areas to the east and southeast. That will stay in place and further help with the transition between the commercial and the residential. Move forward back to this. We feel that the proposal contributes to a mixed housing option to serve the growing area workforce and more affordable housing, those specifically transitioning out of housing and single-family detached residences. We feel it's consistent with the comp plan, the proposed use, the focused density in a location that is, again, as mentioned, accessible to nearby services, shopping centers, schools, and I-25 corridor. We feel that it accommodates easy access to goods and services by nature of its location, both by car and foot, with the adjacent uses, both the commercial uses and adjacent grocery store to the north. There is, as mentioned, there's existing controlled access points that we'll get into a little bit more. There's 4 current access points that are the current site. This graphic here kind of helps better understand the access that exists to date. There is a 3/4 just off of Baptist, more on the east side, a right in, right out. On further to the west, moving down Struthers, there is a 3/4 movement, or excuse me, right in, right out, that's existing right just north of the hotel use, and then a full movement off Struthers. This is seen as having appropriate access based on the studies that we had before. Previously, the vehicle trips on an average weekday is some 2,853 for the prior commercial uses. The current proposed multifamily would generate 1,488 external trips, which results in about 1,400 less trips for the amended use, specifically 1,365. Again, there was some comments and questions about that by the Planning Commission. We had done, after our initial review, done some additional studies on the intersections to kind of further support that. And those are available if needed. There was, as you can see, before I get too far ahead of myself, the general site drainage is to the southwest. There is an existing detention pond that will serve this. The site generally slopes to the southeast. There's capacity for the pond of 1.5 acre-feet of volume. There will be an increase, which will push it to about 1.0 acre-feet, still leaving room for future development as needed. Previous comments that the Planning Commission were voiced about the drainage from the neighbors to the south. They have some concerns about the historic drainage that's between their property and our property. That is historic drainage. It's not necessarily impacted by the property, but we did discuss with them afterwards how this project would serve the detention area in there and actually probably reduce flows, because all the historic flows would have to be guided to that detention pond. At this point, if you guys have any more questions, I'm open for questions.
Questions from the board for the applicant? Yes. Yes.
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right. So this is an ordinance that is open to the public. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on behalf of ordinance 19-2017 approving the sketch plan amendment for the Monument Ridge Plan development? Is there anyone who would like to speak on behalf of this from the public? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone who would like to speak against this from the public? All right, hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board for additional discussion and or a motion. Yes, sir.
I would definitely like to express my concern for this project being in compliance with our current comprehensive plan. From my view, from what I see, as presented here this evening, the density increase, we don't have anything in this town currently to compare that to. It would be significantly higher than the one, I guess, apartment complex we have on that side of the interstate. I would also question the statement that the flow and the ease of transition regarding the aesthetics and appearance from, again, this is a parcel that is currently zoned as commercial. I believe there's a bank, a McDonald's, a Walgreens, and the aesthetics to transition smoothly and pleasingly to over 200 units in less than a 10-acre area. I would question that, as well as the ability to transition to connecting neighborhoods. There are no other residential homes in our jurisdiction on that side or adjacent to that parcel. So to make the claim that it would, again, ease the transition in compliance with our comprehensive plan, again, we're permitted and we're encouraged to use our comprehensive plan as a guide, as a voice of the people. Specifically, as mentioned in our comprehensive plan, as well as the community survey, well over 1,000 community members, when asked what they don't want in our community, when asked what they do not want to see, overwhelmingly more than anything else on the options given and the ability to write in the options, was high-density housing and multifamily housing. So I again, and once again, this seems to be a regular occurrence, would significantly question the statement that this is, again, in substantial compliance with our current comprehensive plan. There was a reason it was zoned or rezoned to commercial. I would imagine that that reason still stands today.
Any other comments from the board?
I'd like to just clarify that the town survey has a lot of wants in it that cannot be held true to the comprehensive plan. And one thing we discussed in the comprehensive plan is we have a community that has very high-end housing throughout our town. Everybody wants the best and brightest new teachers with a backpack full of school loans to move into a $400,000 home. Makes it a little difficult to achieve all our goals here in town. That's all. Thank you.
Additional comments from the board? All right, hearing none, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve ordinance 19-2017, an ordinance approving a sketch plan amendment for the Monument Ridge Plan development.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Bishop, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Murphy,
No.
Trustee Medlicott,
Yes.
Trustee Koopman,
No.
Trustee Bornstein,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes, that motion fails on a 3-3 vote. All right, Ms. Jones, ordinance 20-2017, an ordinance approving the site plan amendment for Les Schwab Tires.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. So a site plan amendment is before you next tonight. This is for Les Schwab Tire Center. This was project DA 10-2017. And before you tonight as ordinance 20-2017. So the site we are talking about is essentially at the northeast corner of Leather Chaps Drive and Jackson Creek Parkway. I believe you can see there's the existing Qdoba restaurant, which is directly to the south of this site. This site actually shares access and parking with the existing Qdoba. Obviously, this is across the street from existing retail on the west, as well as on the south. And then there's a credit union to the north of this site and an office building to the east. An area of town I'm sure most people are familiar with. Just to summarize the zoning, this is actually zoned Regency Park, planned mixed use, and then the subject site is highlighted there with a star. Again, there's planned commercial development to the west, and then it's also surrounded by other properties with the same zoning. Summary of this project. This is actually lot 2 of the Jackson Creek Commerce Center, filing number 3. Lot 1 is the existing Qdoba restaurant. Both lots 1 and 2 were previously approved at the same time for restaurant and retail buildings. And this is at the same time as the Qdoba. The current proposal is for just over a 10,000 square foot building for a Les Schwab tire center. This use is allowed as a use by right in this zoning district. So not really the discussion tonight really isn't the use or the user, but the other related items such as the site plan and the architecture. Again, the use is allowed by right. There aren't any changes to the access, and really not even any significant changes to the overall site plan. There was previously a building approved there, which I'm going to show you here in just a few moments. So really the significant changes and why we're here is minimal changes to the building size, very minimal to the building layout, and overall really the building architecture is what brings us here. These site plans can sometimes be a little bit difficult, but I do want to highlight for you what we're looking at. So the area sort of grayed out on the bottom of the screen here is the already constructed parking and associated areas with the Qdoba restaurant. So the green arrow is the shared access off of Old Forest Point, which is where you would get access to this site. And then the proposed building is highlighted in yellow, just to give you an idea there. Again, approximately 10,000 square feet. The front, their entrance, so to speak, is on the south side, facing the Qdoba, and then their showroom with their windows and that type of thing is along Jackson Creek Parkway. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a feel for the site plan. Then I want to get a little bit more specific. This area on the northeast of the site that I've circled for you, the current proposed site plan, this area you'll see, if you can see, is their trash enclosure, sort of their typical trash enclosure, and then it's actually extra large for their tire recycling area. It would all be one screened area. Staff is actually recommending, and the applicant has agreed to change that a little bit. So this actually shows you a little bit better. The green area is their dumpster area, and then it's extra large with that additional purple would be their proposed tire storage area. And again, we've spoken with the applicant and recommend a condition of approval to actually move that recycled tile area for tire recycling inside of the building, so it would increase the building size a little bit. And then that allows the dumpster area to be back to sort of the quote-unquote normal size, much smaller, less prominent there at the entrance to the site. So that's really what this slide is intended to show. It would increase the building size by approximately 1,200 square feet. That's kind of what's shown there in purple. And then allow that dumpster area again to be less substantial and further to the north of the site. So this rendering is a part of the approved plans from the Qdoba approval for lot 1 and 2. This was the elevation that was approved for this building. I'm sorry, the building on this lot, number 2. I include it mainly so you can see the type of architecture, those types of things. Again, this is the significant change. Obviously, a national brand has their own corporate style, right? So which doesn't match this. So that's why we're here tonight, to bring forward their own architecture. I have a rendering know the QDOBA that was approved at the same time, I think we can see, just to highlight a couple of the similar elements, they're both sort of this modern style, straight lines, and these wood timber features. So I have several slides to illustrate the architecture of the proposed Les Schwab Tire Center. Again, very modern, straight lines, a variety of materials. They do incorporate, and it's somewhat hard to see on this rendering, but we do have a materials board. They've incorporated a horizontal timber treatment there at their front door, around the entrance. A variety again of colors. They have a red, a very dark red metal treatment along the top to sort of provide some differentiation in the architecture, and a lot of glazed glass, particularly on their showroom side, the west elevation, primarily glass, straight lines. The east elevation, there would be some slight changes to this elevation with that condition to increase, to allow for the tire storage. I believe the applicant may speak just a little bit about that. There's some pretty minimal changes. And then the rear or the north elevation, again, we're still illustrating what we call four-sided architecture, some variation, some dimension, and a mixture of materials on all four sides. So the Planning Commission. This project was brought before the Planning Commission also on September 13th. Staff recommended approval based on the criteria. The Planning Commission recommended denial. The stated reason was based on the change from multi-tenant to single-tenant, and that vote was 3-2. Staff is concerned about that somewhat. Multi-tenant to single-tenant was somewhat of a description between the two buildings. There's not anything that discusses multi-tenant in the approval criteria, even really in that previous approval. It was referred to as inline retail. We can certainly talk more about that, but that's the concern with that recommendation. That is what was stated with the motion. So staff continues to recommend approval with conditions. There's actually a second condition on there just about landscaping. We can certainly get into that if you would like. The staff recommends approval. Again, here's the conditions. Moving that tire storage area inside of the building. Again, the applicant has agreed to that. And then a landscape plan. Your landscape plan is short on plants. It's possible that the landscape regulations would change between now and when they would be ready to do planting. So we've added a condition that essentially allows just a little bit of flexibility in there to, at the time that they're ready to get their land use permit, their plan would need to meet the requirements at that time, just to, again, take into effect whether some changes that are coming before you later to go into effect. Staff is available for questions.
Is the applicant here this evening?
Yes.
Would the applicant like to come forward and provide any additional information in support of that? Then after that, Ms. Corley, I have a question for you, instructions for the board as well as information to the town on what our quasi-judicial responsibilities are, if you could enlighten us on that. At which point we'll open it up to the board for questions, comments, and then we'll open it up to the public and then bring it back to the board. Yes, sir.
Hi. My name is Aaron McLean with Galloway and Company.
Aaron McLean.
Aaron McLean. We handle the planning, civil, and architectural plans for the Les Schwab Tire Company. With me tonight is also a member, one of the owners of the property, Rob Oldick. He can help speak to some of the previous development agreements and intent that they had previously. So let's not repeat everything that staff has presented. We do agree with what the staff's presentation was and the findings of that. We understand what the concerns were from the citizens that did speak at the Planning Commission, as well as the Planning Commission's concerns as well. And we feel that moving the tire recycling enclosure internal to the building is going to be a much better site layout for the property. You're going to minimize some of the visual aspects of it, as far as where you look into the property. You can see, where the large tire enclosure would be. So now it's just going to be a regular trash enclosure. And what that does also too is the reason why they kind of started doing that around up and down the front range is that it helps with some of the theft that can occur with people wanting to take tires that may be able to be repurposed or reused. So that helps with that aspect as well. And quite frankly, there's also a fire concern too. sometimes there's certain fire codes that you have to meet that require distances from structures. So really that's about all we have to offer. You know, understand that the zoning does allow for the use. It isn't specific to a number of tenants. The client is a single tenant occupation company rather, and they operate from Monday through Saturdays from 9 to 6, I believe, are their hours. So they are starting to get more stores opening up and down the Front Range, and this will obviously be their first one in Monument. I know they had looked at a site on Baptist as well, and that one didn't quite work out for other reasons, but they're excited to be here in Monument. And fortunately, they were unable to make it. They had a prior engagement and for tonight. So,
Thank you, sir. Ms. Corley, would you like to, for the benefit of the board as well as the public, just kind of outline what our quasi-judicial responsibilities are, particularly in this regard? I know that you sent an email to the board, and you probably have some color you'd like to add on that.
I just wanted to emphasize tonight that you are voting on an amendment to a previously approved site plan, and the amendment specifically pertains to architecture and the building size. And your role here tonight is to listen to the evidence, and if it meets that criteria, then you should approve the project. And if there's some reason that it does not meet the town's criteria, then you don't approve the amendment.
All right, thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Bornstein, you have
It's a very simple question, and I'm only saying it because it's come up in conversation. Can you please explain to me, because we keep talking multi-tenant versus single tenant. So why is this coming up?
I'm not really sure why the Planning Commission focused on that. I wasn't present at the meeting, but I believe the previous site plan maybe showed or depicted multiple doors, and so they thought that was a condition of approval, and it's not a condition of approval. It was not approved as strictly multi-tenant, so it's not really an issue.
So it was an and, or it wasn't by definition that there were going to be 3 entities within that property.
That's correct.
Just one more clarification for Ms. Corley, and probably again for the benefit of everybody. It's my understanding, again, of use by right, you know, it's like the example that was given. We can't pick and choose what businesses get to come here in an area where they are a permitted use business. You can't say, I only want Starbucks in this area when you have whoever a competitor to Starbucks is right next door. Yeah. And this is, in fact, a use by right. So what we're doing today, like you said, is simply the architecture as well as the size of the building for something that's already been through at least the first stage of the approval process.
You're 100% correct.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. And I have some more questions as well.
I have one thing I want to clarify. The Planning Commission voted 3-2. They denied it.
Correct.
And did we do anything to attempt to talk to the Planning Commission and explain why they were wrong, why they misinterpreted, they misunderstood their inability to do their job on this project as opposed to others that they've sent to us?
I did not tell them that.
I want to know if anybody talked to them after their vote and then discussed that.
We did not have that discussion. We tried to make it very clear during the presentation what the question on the table was. And it did take sort of a very odd direction that we weren't really expecting. There weren't questions to staff along the lines of this multi-tenant, single tenant. That came up in their discussion. There was a motion, it was done. So staff did not get a chance to really answer that or clarify that in any way.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions?
For
Or wherever, just go ahead. If you have questions, go ahead.
Sir, moving the recycled tire to the side of the building, it will, I would assume, take on the appearance of the rest of the building and share the roof with the building, so it's not going to be an open, fenced-in area or something.
correct. Yeah, it'll take on the same elevation. What it does is just expand it about 10 feet or so on the long end of it, and then the width of it comes out a little bit as well. But it would take on the same elevation, same building materials and everything. It's just a little larger building, it's a longer.
Thank you.
Trustee Koopman, you had additional questions, comments? Yes, sir.
One, I'd like to thank you for your work on the architectural side. I know that this isn't your standard design or theme for this particular business. From the sketch drawings, I think it looks fantastic. Question would be, or I guess really a clarification, so the bay doors are going to be facing really Qdoba, not Jackson Creek Parkway, is that correct? So the visual site of a garage or a warehouse isn't something that's going to be readily seen by people driving that main thoroughfare, is it?
Correct, yeah, that's going to be, so it'd be the southeast, or really the south view of that is the bay doors are going to be facing internal to the parking lot and in the Qdoba lot. And then on the south side, that's the showroom is the Jackson Creek Parkway, where you'll see, you'll be able to see inside the store where they have the tires, and it's really nice glass storefront that, is a nice prominent display for them.
Fantastic. I know you mentioned landscaping. Is there going to be landscaping between, again, the side with the bay doors facing Qdoba into that restaurant environment versus more the commercial type environment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Some of that area is actually already landscaped. I believe I have a little bit of a better graphic. Again, so the area that's sort of in gray is basically already developed, so some of that is already landscaped. There's extensive landscaping along the Jackson Creek side. There's also landscaping along that north elevation and then around the dumpster enclosure. Again, based on the reason that conditions in there, they will be required to meet the code. We've reviewed it. It's close. It actually is within just 2 or 3 plans of meeting that revised landscape planning, and that's why we added that. Just they will be required to meet that, whatever it is at that time. But actually, along that south side is mostly already in.
Fantastic. And the last question, I guess, traffic. An average facility like this or a store like this, what kind of traffic does it bring in as far as volume of customers on a weekly basis or something like that?
As far as being the retail store that they are, they have typically 10 to 12, 15 employees at any one time. The store being a 6 bay, they have essentially 6 employees for each bay, and then a couple extra to help with the assist in some of the bays. But as far as traffic count numbers go, they're looking at maybe 25 or so a day. Obviously, they like as many as they can, but the idea is that, and that's why they locate inside these shopping centers, is people come in and do their daily trading so they can get their tires served, go have some lunch, or go run some other errands in the immediate vicinity, so it's walkable at least, so go do their banking and so.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Additional questions? Ms. Corley, just, and I think you said this, but in various ways, I just wanted to make sure that there's no ambiguity. It's, in your professional opinion, the Planning Commission was in error in their verdict. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I wasn't there at the meeting, so I can't really...
But based upon their vote and based upon your understanding of the law, would you agree or disagree with their conclusions?
Like I said, I wasn't there, so I wasn't presented with the same evidence that they received at the meeting, but I do think that there are some concerns that the motion was based on it going from multi-tenant to single tenant, and that's not an appropriate basis for an approval criteria in our code.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, sir. I'd like to know whether you can have the Planning Commission reconsider something with the new information that they may not have had been privy to when we took the vote.
So we can't go back to the Planning Commission at this point. At this point, it's before you tonight. And the next step that we need to do is open it up for public comment for and against, and then come back to the board and y'all can have some additional discussion. But it can't go back to the Planning Commission and then come here. And Jennifer was there that night, and Larry as well.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. There's no additional comments from the board at this time. We'll open up this to the public. Is there anyone who would like to speak on behalf of Ordinance 2017 approving the site plan amendment for Les Schwab Tires? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak against this proposed ordinance? All right, hearing none. We'll bring it back to the board for additional questions, discussions, and or a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 2017, an ordinance approving site plan amendment for Les Schwab Tire Center.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Bishop, would you take roll, please?
Trustee Koopman.
Yes.
Trustee Borenstein.
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
No.
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes, that motion passes 5-1. Mr. Manning, would you like to come for us and present 21-2017?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees. This is a project that I've been working on for some time and been working with other folks in the development community as well as the landscape the community as well, the experts in it, which I'm not. So I took a little time to make sure I got a little educated and got some input to help me out with this. So this started a little while ago. I did come before the board once, gave you some information. Both Planning Commission and the board gave you some input, which I tried to assimilate, as well as the input I got from these other development conversations. I wanted to note that this landscape ordinance does not apply in the PD or planned development zone. In that zone, the applicant will submit what they think works for the circumstances peculiar to that particular location, and it will be evaluated based on that. So this would apply to site plans not in the PD zone, which you just saw one or talked about one in Les Schwab. If they wanted the flexibility in the PD zone, they could be rezoned or asked to be rezoned in PD. This whole thing started with the change that occurred in 2014, where no turf grass was allowed in non-residential development. And to me, it appears that there was an overcompensation in terms of plants that were required so that they still had a good aesthetic even without the turf grass. The number that was put out there in the actual ordinance was 24 plants per 100 square feet. We talked about that a little bit when I met with you before. So that's one of the important elements we'll talk about tonight. So particularly I want to point out the highlights of the changes. The first one has to do with section 1752.020. In this case, what we wanted to do was give people with an existing approved landscape plan, undeveloped or developed, the ability to come back in and apply for a new landscape plan for administrative approval if it more closely met the requirements of the new plan. The second one is in 1752.040, landscape standards. This section refers to replacing trees when you remove them. And what has been changed, what is recommended, is that we put in there some language that allows, if you have a development approval, let's say a subdivision in a very heavily treed area, and you approve a road to go in a location, that authorizes those trees to be removed per that approval, rather than having to have some separate process by which to do so. And again, down to the numbers. What I talked about before, the 24 plants per 100 square feet. In research and talking with other people that were more closely involved at that time, it appears that the real number was intended to be 12 rather than 24, and the language turned out in the actual ordinance. It was difficult to tell that that was clear. What we're recommending is 8 plants in an aesthetic arrangement per 100 square feet. It varies greatly depending on the plants you choose. Some plants will get 5 feet wide, 5 feet tall. Others get 2 feet wide and 6 feet tall. So it's really a matter of looking at the type of plants, the way they're arranged together, and make sure you get some nice coverage. And certainly we would take time at the staff level to make sure we advise you on that. The last thing is we changed the number of trees required to 1 for every 925 square feet of landscape area, and that's changed from 1 for every 625. So it's actually lowering the number of trees that would be required, but it's also allowing the person to exchange trees for plants. Some places might work better to have more trees and less plants, simply because of the nature of the development. So those are highlights of what we're recommending tonight. And do you have any questions?
Questions from the board?
Yes, when we talked about this some time ago, xeriscaping is one of the things that I was hoping was going to be endorsed or supported as part of our landscape plan. Is it included a discussion on that as an approach to save water and allow beauty with more cost-effective use of water? Is that anywhere included in our landscape guidelines?
Yeah, I think you'll find that when they changed it and didn't allow turf graft, that was a large move in that direction. So the composition of plants that will now be allowed are such that we'll have a landscape guide, which we already have and we're working on, that will tell you what kinds of plants. But certainly, that's the objective. We've got rock mulch, we've got wood mulch, we don't have turf grass. We also are allowing a lot more native grass that will grow without irrigation once it's established.
Okay, and will the term xeriscaping be there so people understand, if they heard that term, that we're basically providing guidance that falls within?
Yes, we'll make sure that's in the guide,
Super.
which will be much more elaborate than the language in here.
Thank you very much.
Great job.
Questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you. I think it was worth the wait, and you did a great job, and it'll be very viable for the visibility of the community, so thank you.
Very good. In section 1752.020, it sounds like if the applicant has been approved for their existing, they would not be required to fall under the new, because they would be grandfathered in, but they can if they choose. Is that a correct understanding?
Correct.
Okay. And it seems to me like a lot of this wording is designed to provide a lot of leeway to staff to use some common sense to make some good judgments when an applicant comes forward to look for some variance. Is that fair?
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. This is a public hearing ordinance. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on behalf of 2017, repealing and replacing Chapter 17.2 of the Town of Monument Municipal Code? Hearing none, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak against this ordinance? All right, hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board for additional discussion and or a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 21-2017, an ordinance repealing and replacing Chapter 17.52 of the Town of Monument Municipal Code, landscaping.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Bishop, would you take roll, please?
Mayor Kaiser.
Yes.
Trustee Bornstein.
Yes.
Trustee Koopman.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Medlicott.
Yes.
And Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate all your hard work and efforts. Ms. Corley, would you take us into executive session, please?
Yes, Mayor, I recommend an executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute Section 2464024644B for a conference with the town attorney for purposes of receiving